Accessible web.
So it still has the same format from when it was at the homepage viewport, so at the regular 100% zoom. But as it got larger, the ARIA label is not as accurate anymore. So then I would make a separate failure for that to adjust the label to be accurate of the content being present here.
So I'll run through my little pre-audit notes here, and Ramp is our platform, and there's many things it can do. It's pretty powerful. First one being the guided audit tool that Mark will be using. Depends on what subscription level of Ramp you're at, but you can get access to our guided audit tool, and it is included in our extension. The extension itself is free, allows for our color contrast checker and just quick scans of your pages. But Ramp is a good place to put your results, whether that be from automated scanning or manual auditing, into one place. Additionally, it should be used for continuous monitoring of your platform. If it's a public-facing site that's not behind a login, it's very easy for us to get that set up. If it is behind a login, we have a new feature we're rolling out slowly, and we will be more than happy to help you get that set up as well. And then the things it can't detect, we definitely recommend getting a manual audit. So with that said, the audit that Mark is about to do does not we are not going to go through all the steps that we would normally. Um, the steps we've selected are to be a representative sample of things that are really easy to learn when you're just getting into auditing, and also are typically involved heavily in like heavy accessibility barriers. Yeah, so anything that Mark finds today is just to support organizations and companies making progress and improvements to the digital accessibility. It is not to make fun of anybody or say that anyone's doing anything poorly on purpose. It is simply to make suggestions. And Mark, if you're ready, feel free to screen share and start your audit.
Hey everybody again. So the site we'll be checking out is this BlissTech site here, is e-commerce site. And it's going to be this section of content here under lip care products. So to me, visually, this looks like a carousel. It seems to be functioning as one. So I think this is a good one because this is a pretty common thing that I see on a lot of e-commerce sites. This one doesn't seem to be as overwhelming as some, because some e-commerce sites have a bunch of other products that are layered on top with other additional content when you hover on images, but it seems like this is a pretty basic one. So we can take a look at this. So starting off again, as per usual, we're going to start off with the automated checks. Just make sure there's nothing being flagged here, and this is okay. That's all good. For this testing, I'm going to take it a different approach. I might not be able to go through all of these because they might not apply to this section of content, but I know for sure we're going to hit up keyboard accessible, focus management, and name role value. This is a pretty big component, and carousels are pretty difficult to code appropriately and properly. So we can go through those steps, and I'm sure we might find something interesting here. So just going through this right now, just tapping through to make sure everything works. We can see here that this receives focus 3 times. The left navigation arrow doesn't seem to be receiving focus, nor does the right. It does not. And I'm just going through here with the tab key. And I'm going to press enter and space to make sure these are acting as links and taking us to new pages. So that looks like it's doing the same. The original, or the first initial pass through with this big focus state here, does not do anything, and that's okay. It's technically not a WCAG failure that it's receiving focus. And just an additional tab stop, so I'd probably mark that as a best practice. And this also goes to the same page as well. So I would flag this as a best practice, not a failure, even though it receives focus 3 times, just to reduce the cognitive load on some people. It goes to the same page, so it's kind of redundant to tab this 3 times instead of once. So I would probably make a best practice for that, but we don't have that step on this configuration here. But that's something I would mark up on a full manual audit for this test. All right. So for this, I would make a failure here for the arrow keys, not receiving focus and not being operable using keyboard alone. It is operable with just clicking on it, but that same equivalent content is not interactive for keyboard users, so I would mark that as a failure. I won't document it at this point in time, but that is something I would mark. I didn't notice any keyboard traps. Nothing happened on focus or on input that is changing context. No keyboard shortcuts that were occurring here just by going through my keys and looking at all of them. And then there are no specific timings to activate any of these components there. We did see that there was a visible indication of focus, so that's really good. A nice dark blue there. But the thing I'm interested in is to see what these components are coded as, just because I know there should be buttons, but I'm assuming that they are going to be coded as just a standard div with no role. So if we check our inspector here, yeah, so we can see that they're just coded as an italic tag. So they don't have a role, they're just generic. So if we go into our custom widgets under name role value, and we add a failure, we are going to go to add it under design pattern button. Because it is triggering an action to navigate the page left or right. And then you can see under our remediation recommendation that this needs to be having a role button and also needs to have an accessible name. So this could either be um, left navigation, right navigation, something that's descriptive that lets users know that it's performing the action of moving to the right, to the left. Um, and then it's also operable using the space bar or the enter key. So that's something we're going to note there. I won't write that down, but that is something that I would document during the full audit. Now for the big component here for the carousel, we can inspect this and then we can see if this is coded properly. So these links are good. That's okay. It has the name of the image. I'm sure it's taking the accessible name here. So the name for this image, or the accessible name is coming from the alt text because it's nested. So that name is coming from this, and that's why this name is there. Um, this is a p tag. This is not coded as a list, but it's acting as, or a link, but it's acting as one. Okay. The stars are here as well, also acting as a link. So the star rating is good. That's okay. Again, I would make a best practice so that the product itself receives focus and is the only component that is interactive for keyboard users. These other ones can be hidden, and that's just to reduce the redundancy of receiving focus multiple times. But if we go into the carousel design pattern here, again, a carousel typically displays a set of slides. As you can see here, they are a set of slides of 3. And then we usually have them as a role region or group. So what we're going to do is going to look at the container for this and see what they are coded as to make sure that it is coded properly. So let's try to find the main container here. There it is. Okay. So this is the container here. Okay. And then, so typically what I would do is if we're going through this in a full audit, I'm going to keep the remediation recommendation that we recommend side by side. And I'm just going to go through and look at and see if what I see here on the site is present in our remediation recommendation here. So just going through, we can see the container for the carousel does not have either role region or role group that's containing the controls and the slides. Again, we know that the controls are not coded properly yet, so that's already been addressed by creating that button failure. And if we keep going down, we can see that there's no ARIA role description. I can check that here too by just typing in the fields. And there's no ARIA role description. And I can check again to see if there's a carousel markup with that here. And I don't see one popping up. So there's already 2 flags for me that lets me know that this is not coded properly. We keep going down. We know the rotation control is not there. It's not properly coded as buttons and stuff. That's okay. Each slide needs a container role of group and RE role description slide. We know that is not apparent right now. It's just a div with a link. And then these are separate link for these as well. But the actual container itself for each slide does not have that role. So that's something we'd have to add here as well. Again, each slide doesn't have its own name. So the slide container could just be slide 1. And then every time it's a new set of 3, we can add a new name. For example, 2 of how many there are for this container of slides. So it looks like none of this is coded appropriately. So I would have to keep all the failures here. Typically what would happen if there was some portion of this that was properly coded, I would make a section for needs work and already completed. And typically what would happen was I would probably drag like 2 or 3 of these that I see that's present there um, into the needs work section. If the other ones have already been completed, they'll stay the same here, and this will just be just below it. So then the first thing that the devs see or the client sees is needs work, and they can automatically go ahead and address these issues right here. So we know at the main view, this is not coded properly, but the thing is with carousels, we have to double check to make sure that they visually look the same at different viewports. And that's something that sometimes people may forget, that at different viewports, these can adjust what they look like. So if we zoom into 200, again, we can see now it's coded differently. The arrow keys are gone. The see all is now, I think it's a view all for the products. Let me check. Yeah, explore all is now becoming one with the lip care products. And then now we have the gray dots here indicating what slide a user is on. So we can see there's what? 9 slides. And then we'll go here and check this again to see what this looks like, because this could be different. It might not be the same. And then as you can see here, this has a new type of design pattern. So now these are coded as tabs. And the thing with accessibility rules that is tricky sometimes is just because something visually looks like this doesn't necessarily mean it has to be coded like a carousel. As long as that same information is being communicated to the user, that's okay. So in this instance, this section is a tab panel. It's only showing this set of slides. As long as each container is coded as a tab, because I think it has to have a tab here somewhere. Let's see. Because that tab panel needs the ID. So if we do this, yeah, you can see here. Now we're using these dots to reference as the tab, and you can see the ARIA controls here is present. It has tab, it has select equals true. So now when a user is going through this with this technology, they're going to know that they have this set of items for this tab panel here. 2 of 3. The only thing that's not correct, as you can tell, is the labeling. So I would make a failure for the labeling because, as you can see, it's not accurate to what's being represented here. 2, 4, 6. There's 9, and it's setting 1 of 3. So it still has the same format from when it was at the homepage viewport, so at the regular 100% zoom. But as it got larger, the ARIA label is not as accurate anymore. So then I would make a separate failure for that to adjust the label to be accurate of the content being present here. But again, I just want to reference that Just because something is looking like a different type of design pattern does not necessarily mean it has to be coded like that, as long as that same information is being presented properly and appropriately. And again, we can check the same thing at 400% zoom because this might look a bit different again. And then yeah, see, as you can see, now it's only one page, and now there's some overlap here for the text and the dots. So that's something that would have to be addressed in reflow, so that this is not on top of the number rating here and it's just below. And I'm sure that this might be off as well. Yeah. So again, ARIA label is incorrect, but it does have the ARIA controls referencing the appropriate tab panel ID. So if we type in slick, I think that's what it was, slick slide. Let's go back and see. Slick slide 1. Whoa. And the site just crashed. Let's refresh that. There. The ID is there, and the structure something like that. But now let's see if the tab panel is referencing the correct ID. Yeah. So now you can see the IDs here, so that can reference the right tab panel. And when we go to the tab section here, we can see the same design specifications here with role tab list. If you go to the main section, the main container here, there should be a role tab list present. We can check this again by going to tab list. So yeah, there's a tab list here. But again, see, another thing here is missing. There's no name. So if there's no visible label present, then this has to have an ARIA label. So this is missing from this, and that's going to have to be the same thing for the 400% zoom and 200% zoom at that different viewport. The name is missing, so it has to be added to this design pattern here. But the rest of it looks pretty good. It has role tab. That's correct. It has ARIA controls with the value of ID, and then it has ARIA selected equals true when this is selected. But let's see if those receive focus with keyboard and are keyboard operable. It looks like they're still not, and the only thing that's receiving focus is the components or the product images themselves and the ratings. So that's something that have to be addressed in the keyboard section. And we would just indicate to the client that the gray dots below are not keyboard operable, and they need to be. Alrighty. The next thing I was going to look at was going to be the labels, but I think we saw that already, so that's okay. The next thing will be then would be text spacing. So I know I jumped between what we were looking at 200% zoom and 400% zoom, but that just because I knew that carousels will change its design pattern when we're at a different format. So I knew I had to go through that quickly just to see if I'm already looking at carousel design patterns here. I want to make sure that I'm also addressing those issues at different viewports. So just killing two birds with one stone where I can, just to save time. But going with text spacing, we just want to make sure that nothing is overlapping here. Alrighty, so once those things that we've addressed, we did keyboard, we did focus, we looked at name role value, so we've already addressed those issues there. We can look at the heading section here, and we'll start with heading usage. Heading usage is essentially just looking at ensuring that headings function as headings. If they're just regular text, then we don't want them to be coded as headings. But this looks correct. We have H2 here and H1, so the H2 is following this section of content, which is perfect. There's an additional H1 here, but that's not part of the stuff we're auditing, but I would code that as an H2 because it's a new subset. So that can be coded as an H2 and that will be fine. Looking at the labels here, we can use our tool and we're going to get a highlighter on. Again, I think I mentioned this in the morning, but I prefer to use start with label and name failure because I'm just looking to see if the visible labels are present in the accessible name itself. And the accessible name is the name that's being communicated in the accessibility tree. So just going through here, we're going to check these items out. So we can see that the Explore All link here has the same name that's visually presented and the same name that's being communicated to the accessibility tree. The name for the product image is there. It's a package of BlissText LipMedics, and then it has Learn More LipMedics jar. Again, that accessible name is coming from the alt text from the image, so that's why it's including the additional verbiage there. The star ratings are good too. It has the correct star rating, which is really good. And then just going through here, we can see that everything else looks correct. So that looks all good. We have no form fields here, but typically, or disabled components. This section of content, again, is related to having content being disabled, required, or read only. So all this content is interactive and is going to be for most users. So none of this has to be disabled or required. And then no content here is required to be auto-completed for a form field. So we can mark this as not applicable. Going through the links again, we just saw the names for the links and they all function as links. So we know that for this section here, we don't have to adjust anything new. Everything functions as a link and does not function as a link. So we can mark that as complete. Link purpose, the names for these links are descriptive. And we can determine what its purpose is based on link alone. So we should be all good at that front. I think the thing I have to address is actually what we should do. I didn't do this earlier, is go back at this view and scan again just to make sure we don't have any. Here we go. New failures. So this is something I was afraid of happening, which is pretty common for these types of elements, is that there's hidden elements here that have a tab index of number -1. So these shouldn't be present. So there's hidden elements, but they're focusable. So that's something that has to be addressed. So again, I would document this failure here and just indicate to user that there are hidden the elements that have arya equals hidden equals true, and they're focusable and they should not be. So they're either going to remove arya hidden equals true or add a tab index of -1 so that they don't receive focus. And then we're going to also scan this again at a larger viewport to see if anything new is found. And you should always be scanning anytime there's new content, we should always be scanning with our tool, just because again, there could be code mishaps and new things present that we may not have seen prior. So this all looks the same. This link is not related to us, but this is just missing an accessible name. But it seems to be that this component is the only one that's missing. So once these components that are not supposed to be receiving focus are addressed, this issue will be resolved. So we can zoom out all the way here. We can go to contrast. A lot of this contrast looks pretty good to me, but we can double check that. We can go to our tool. And you want to get the darkest possible red we can for the text. And it reaches a 4.5 to 3, which is great. So that's passing. We have other content on hover. So the way we check that, because this is a different indicator here. So on hover is darker red, and on focus, it's a dark blue. So a trick to view the on hover contrast, if we go to inspector here, we open this up. We click on the link here. Oh, it might not do it because it's not coded as one yet, but let's see. Click on that link and we go to this hub button here. If we press hover, it's going to force the state to be the hover focus state, or the hover state, sorry. So then we can force the state and we can use our tool here to check the contrast color of this dark red. And this is pretty dark, so I know this is it should pass. But we can check it here for you. So we have a 7.10 to 1, which is super dark, and it's reaching that 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio. So again, if you ever come across any text that you want to check that's on hover, but you can't force a state, you want to open up the accessibility tree, going into inspector, have the accessibility tree open here, but go to the styles. You want to find that component, click on the hub button here, and then you can force the state by clicking hover. You can also do this for focus, focus visible. So now you can see both indications of focus and hover at the same time. While we're here, we can check the dark blue. And I knew that it was really dark, so I knew that was going to be passing. So for these three tests here, we're checking the text contrast, that's passing. Text contrast hover focus, that's also passing. The state for these components is passing. So the last thing to check for us is the dark gray arrow keys here. Since these are not technically UI components, at the moment, we are going to fail these under graphics because they are not interactive. So we are going to check this here, and it's reaching a 5.5 to 1 here. So this is passing. These are all good. There are no input modalities for this. There's nothing for dragging. We have no motion actuation. So it's like shaking something through dice or shaking your phone to roll a dice. Um, Pointer gestures. We don't have anything to zoom a map or any value sliders here. And anything that we can complete here with the pointer cancellation can be done on the down event, up event. So everything here looks good. So nothing out of the ordinary here. And that's that complete audit for a carousel. Again, I didn't mention or I didn't document any of the failures yet for these components, but again, I would code this, the main one here as a basic carousel, and then I would code these buttons here as design pattern button failures here. So those are the main two issues that we had to be solved for this lip care products carousel.